Sergio Mora is blaming Tszyu's third-round TKO loss to IBF junior middleweight champion Bakhram Murtazaliev on bad matchmaking for taking on this killer last Saturday night in an ill-advised fight. The commentator and former 154-pound world champion, Mora feels that Tszyu shouldn't have chosen the little-known IBF belt holder Murtazaliev in his first fight back after a mentally deflating 12-round split decision defeat against Sebastian Fundora earlier this year on March 30th. In Mora's view, fighting Murtazaliev so soon after that defeat was a mistake. Sergio Mora, a former world champion and now an outspoken analyst, didn't hold back in his critique. On social media, he stated, "Bad matchmaking has knocked out Tszyu out of the championship mix. Hate to punch a man when he's down, but Tim coming back against Murtazaliev was just not smart, man. Too much power, not enough brain." The only thing the Grozny, Russia-born Murtazaliev had to offer Tszyu was his IBF belt, which Tim wanted to use as a chess piece to improve his negotiating power to set up lucrative fights against Terence Crawford and Fundora. You have to commend Tszyu for taking on this dangerous KO artist, Murtazaliev, because he showed courage in fighting a guy who had been avoided by the other top fighters at 154, including former undisputed champion Jermell Charlo. He added, Tszyu coming off a tough SD loss against a 6'6" southpaw with 80 reach, and what does he do next? Decide to fight a strong, undefeated Russian champion. Mora's punchy statement reflected his belief that Tszyu's team had made a tactical error in choosing such a dangerous opponent so soon after a physically and mentally draining loss. Mora's comment sparked a lively discussion in the boxing community. Some agreed that Tszyu's decision was a high-risk gamble, pointing out that coming back against someone like Murtazaliev may have hurt his long-term prospects. Others defended Tszyu, praising his warrior mentality and willingness to face top-level competition. The debate highlighted the fine line between bravery and strategy in the sport, especially for a fighter like Tszyu, who is still trying to carve out his place among boxing's elite. Meanwhile, the loss put Tszyu's championship aspirations on hold, and it became clear that he would need to rebuild and make smarter decisions in the future to avoid further setbacks. In the lead-up to the fight, Tszyu exuded confidence, brushing off concerns about his challenging opponent, Bakhram Murtazaliev. Many experts were skeptical about his decision to take on such a dangerous foe after his recent tough loss, but Tszyu's mindset seemed unshaken. Known for his aggressive style and self-assured attitude, Tszyu believed that his skills would carry him through regardless of the opponent's pedigree. This level of confidence, however, began to raise eyebrows, with some wondering if he was underestimating the seriousness of the challenge ahead.
I think he's really been overthinking this because, in all honesty, I haven't really thought much about the fight. When it comes to fight night, I know when to put it on.
Tszyu's dismissive attitude toward his opponent suggested that Murtazaliev's preparations were excessive and unnecessary, while Tszyu believed his natural abilities and experience would be enough to win. He seemed to be approaching the fight with a mindset of, when the time comes, I'll handle it, hinting at an overconfidence that didn't fully account for the magnitude of the challenge Murtazaliev posed. In hindsight, Tszyu's words came across as arrogant, as they underestimated the complexity of the fight ahead. His overconfidence became a key talking point after the fight, especially following his loss to Murtazaliev. Critics argued that Tszyu's dismissive attitude toward preparation and the gravity of facing an undefeated Russian champion had been his downfall. Instead of treating the fight as the uphill battle it was, he seemed to believe he could coast through it on talent alone. The fight's outcome proved otherwise, as Tszyu's lack of mental readiness and strategic preparation became evident, casting his pre-fight remarks in an even harsher light. As Tszyu reflected on his defeat, analysts and boxing experts began dissecting where things went wrong. Leading up to the fight, there were warning signs, both in Tszyu's mindset and his body language, that indicated he might not be fully prepared for the challenge ahead. His dismissive remarks about not overthinking the fight hinted at overconfidence, but it was his performance in the ring that truly showcased this arrogance. From the opening rounds, it became clear that Tszyu was relying too heavily on his perceived superiority, charging forward with an aggressive stance, but neglecting key fundamentals of defense and strategy. Former welterweight champion and current boxing analyst Sean Porter weighed in on Tszyu's defeat, pinpointing arrogance as the root cause of his downfall. Porter commented, "The body language of Tszyu was very arrogant, I'm coming after you. There's nothing that you can do about it." What happens when you're like that and you're standing upright? You don't have your shocks. That's what the legs act as. They act as shocks. So when they're bent, you can take the punches a little better than when you're standing erect. Standing erect is all chin, it's all head, and you don't have anything that can kind of stabilize you from those punches. Porter's analysis was a direct critique of Tszyu's lack of defensive awareness. He noted that Tszyu's arrogance manifested physically in his stance. His upright posture made him an easy target for Murtazaliev's power shots. By neglecting to stay low and bend his legs, Tszyu not only left his chin exposed but also failed to absorb punches effectively. Porter's insight offered a tactical explanation for Tszyu's poor showing in the fight. Porter's assessment resonated with many boxing experts, who echoed the idea that Tszyu's arrogance played a pivotal role in his defeat. His refusal to make adjustments, both in his approach to the fight and in his in-ring tactics, ultimately led to his undoing. Instead of treating Murtazaliev with the respect and caution an undefeated champion deserved, Tszyu's belief that he could walk through his opponent cost him dearly. As Tszyu faces the challenge of rebuilding his career, it's clear that a more grounded approach, both mentally and physically, will be critical to his future success. From the outset, it was clear that Tszyu's approach in the ring reflected an air of entitlement. Many felt that his overconfidence clouded his judgment, leading him to underestimate the skill and power of his undefeated opponent. Observers pointed to his lack of defensive adjustments and the assumption that he could simply walk through Murtazaliev without respecting his abilities. This overestimation became even more apparent as Tszyu repeatedly walked into damaging shots throughout the fight. Journalist Peter Battle added his perspective, noting, "You know what concerned me? I thought Tim was a little bit arrogant early. I don't think he earned the right, and we see this left power shot from Murtazaliev, which was magnificent. I don't think Tim earned the right in this fight to dominate. I mean, he just thought he could walk him down." Battle emphasized that Tszyu hadn't earned the right to take control of the fight as quickly as he assumed he could. Instead of methodically breaking Murtazaliev down, Tszyu seemed to believe he could impose his will immediately, a strategy that backfired. Murtazaliev's precise and powerful left shots capitalized on Tszyu's lack of respect for the Russian's capabilities. Battle's criticism echoed a growing consensus within the boxing community that Tszyu's arrogance led him to abandon fundamental boxing principles. His decision to charge forward recklessly without testing Murtazaliev's defense or making the necessary in-ring adjustments cost him the fight. Instead of employing the strategic patience needed in a high-level contest, Tszyu seemed to operate under the assumption that his aggression alone would secure him the victory. As a result, Murtazaliev was able to pick his moments and land powerful countershots that ultimately exposed the flaws in Tszyu's game plan. The lesson was clear. Tszyu would need to rethink his approach if he hoped to reach championship level again. As Tszyu stood in an interview after the fight, he appeared visibly shaken, struggling to grasp the magnitude of what had just unfolded. For a fighter used to dictating the pace and overpowering his opponents, the experience of being outmatched and outboxed left him searching for answers. In the post-fight interview, a dazed and emotional Tszyu expressed his confusion.
What did I get hit with? Couldn't regroup, and I don't know, man. Just, shit doesn't go your way, and you just have to bounce back, you know. Like, I was positive after the Fondora, but I got to find more answers with this one, you know. Like, this didn't go according to script. It was a little bit different. I felt unbelievable, I'll be honest with you. Felt unbelievable. I had a great prep, so he got me, man, and it was a better man on this night, and we live and we learn.
Thanks, guys. Cheers. Thanks, Timmy.
His raw, unfiltered reaction revealed just how rattled he was by the fight. It was clear that the speed and power of Murtazaliev's punches had overwhelmed him, and Tszyu seemed to be grappling with the shock of being beaten so decisively. For a fighter who had entered the ring so sure of his victory, the sudden and unexpected nature of his loss left him in disbelief. Tszyu's shock and devastation were palpable, and it became clear that he had failed to mentally prepare for the possibility of defeat. This loss, more than any before, would serve as a harsh reminder that no fighter is invincible, and that even the most confident can be humbled in the ring. As Tszyu faces the next chapter of his career, he will need to reflect on this moment and rebuild, learning from the tactical errors and mental missteps that led to this stunning defeat. After securing his victory against Tszyu, Bakhram Murtazaliev took a moment to reflect on what had led to his success. Throughout the fight, it became increasingly clear that Tszyu had underestimated the Russian's power and precision. Tszyu's aggressive forward-pushing style left him exposed to Murtazaliev's counters, especially the sharp left hook that consistently found its target. While Tszyu had entered the fight with confidence, believing he could walk through Murtazaliev's punches, he failed to recognize the danger posed by his opponent's precision and timing. Murtazaliev, addressing his victory in a post-fight interview, explained,
Наверное, это, скорее всего, надо спросить него, но этот левый боковой был очень сильный, и он не ожидал его, а когда ты удар не видишь, он вдвойне сильнее становится.
I guess you gotta ask him that, but that left hook was very, very powerful, and he didn't expect it. And when you don't expect it, it's double. It gives you double impact.
His statement pointed to the tactical flaw in Tszyu's approach. Tszyu's failure to anticipate Murtazaliev's powerful left hook left him vulnerable, and the element of surprise amplified the impact of each punch. Murtazaliev's ability to keep his shots unpredictable was a key factor in neutralizing Tszyu's aggression and ultimately securing his victory. In the days following his brutal stoppage loss to Bakhram Murtazaliev, Tszyu found himself facing an unfamiliar moment of vulnerability. Having entered the fight with high expectations, Tszyu was forced to confront the reality of a decisive defeat that shocked many in the boxing community. As the dust settled, Tszyu's focus shifted toward reflection, regrouping, and understanding the lessons learned from the fight. It was a pivotal moment in his career, not just in terms of his standing as a fighter, but also in how he would mentally recover from such a setback. In the wake of the loss, Tszyu opened up about the advice and guidance he received from his father, Tszyu, a legendary figure in the sport, known for his resilience and mental fortitude.
Look, it is what it is. I got caught with a shot, and I just couldn't move on. Kept getting up, but that wasn't good enough. Congrats to my opponent on a tremendous performance. But yeah, we move on, regroup, and my team will be back.
This statement captured Tszyu's resolve to accept defeat with grace, acknowledging that despite his efforts to continue fighting, he simply couldn't overcome the power and precision of Murtazaliev's shots. His willingness to give credit to his opponent showed maturity, even in the face of a crushing loss. Tszyu's focus on regrouping signaled his determination to bounce back stronger, despite the tough setback. Tim went on to share a piece of fatherly wisdom that had stuck with him since childhood. "I will be back. I'll still be in big fights soon. I got to find plenty of answers from myself, of course. But the main thing my dad told me from a young age, never give up. And if you shoot for the stars and you crash and burn on the way, just keep going. And I'm going to keep going and keep reaching for them stars." These words revealed the depth of Tszyu's influence on his son. The advice, to never give up, even when facing adversity, was a powerful reminder of the Tszyu family legacy of perseverance. Tim's promise to keep going and keep reaching for the stars reflected his belief that this defeat, while painful, was not the end of his journey. It was clear that the lessons of the fight and the wisdom from his father would fuel his comeback. Tszyu's reflections after the fight were a testament to his resilience and his commitment to learning from the experience. Rather than dwell on the loss, he emphasized the importance of continuing to push forward, embodying the never-give-up spirit that his father had instilled in him. The boxing world knew that Tszyu had a long road ahead to rebuild, but his mentality in the aftermath of defeat suggested that he had the mindset to do just that. His openness about finding answers for himself also indicated a period of growth and introspection, something that could ultimately lead to a more focused and improved version of Tszyu when he returns to the ring. With his father's words guiding him, Tszyu's comeback story would undoubtedly be one to watch. Following Tszyu's unexpected loss to Bakhram Murtazaliev, many in the boxing world were left stunned by the manner in which the fight unfolded. While some had anticipated a close and competitive matchup, the one-sided nature of Murtazaliev's victory took everyone by surprise. Among the voices weighing in on the fight was former world champion Chris Algieri, who had expected a more evenly matched contest, given Tszyu's fundamentals and technical abilities. Algieri reflected on the fight, saying, "I mean, it was definitely surprising, especially in the way that it happened. Not so much the fact that he won. I thought Tszyu was going to be able to edge him based on his fundamentals and just better technique, but I thought it was going to be a close fight. That was an utter destruction, and it's funny." Algieri's assessment highlighted the shock many felt after witnessing the fight. He expected a more tactical and technical battle, with Tszyu potentially edging out Murtazaliev. Instead, Murtazaliev's dominance left little room for debate, with Algieri labeling it as utter destruction. His comment reinforced the notion that while Tszyu entered the fight with technical advantages, he was ultimately overwhelmed by Murtazaliev's power and precision, leaving fans and analysts alike rethinking their pre-fight expectations. For a fighter with high expectations and a legacy to uphold, being knocked out was a severe blow to his reputation. Among those who addressed the brutal nature of the loss was former champion and boxing commentator Tim Bradley, who didn't hold back in his assessment of Tszyu's current standing. Bradley bluntly remarked, "Tszyu, he lost, he got knocked out, now he's considered a bum." Bradley's harsh critique reflected the unforgiving nature of boxing, where a single loss, especially in such a decisive manner, can quickly tarnish a fighter's reputation. While Bradley's words may seem extreme, they highlight the immense pressure on top fighters to maintain their standing in the sport. For Tszyu, Bradley's comment was a reminder reminder of how rapidly public perception can shift following a loss, with fans and critics quick to label even the most promising fighters as bums after a defeat. However, Tszyu now faces the challenge of proving that one loss doesn't define his career, and he will need to fight his way back to restore his credibility in the boxing world. Among those who reacted to the upset was former super middleweight champion Caleb Plant. A veteran of the sport, Plant understood the highs and lows that come with being a professional fighter, and his comments reflected the respect he had for Tszyu's fighting spirit despite the loss. Reacting to Tszyu's defeat, Plant said, "Tough man in the office, as part of boxing. A lot of highs and lows in the sport, and sure, he'll go home, spend some time with his family, get his SLS together, and we come back." Plant acknowledged the brutal reality of the sport where even the toughest fighters can have off nights. His remarks showed empathy for Tszyu, emphasizing that the fighter would need time to recover and regroup, but with the hope of a strong return. Plant also highlighted Tszyu's warrior mentality, saying, "It wouldn't have been hard for Tim, as if he could have got up, he would have kept getting up. That's just his DNA. He's proven that, some fighters, that's just their DNA. They're going to keep getting up and fight till they can't no more." Plant's comments reflected both the harshness and the heart of boxing. While Tszyu's loss was devastating, Plant's words reinforced the belief that Tszyu's fighting spirit remained intact. His admiration for Tszyu's resilience was clear, noting that some fighters are simply wired to keep fighting, regardless of the punishment they take. Plant's support suggested that while Tszyu had fallen this time, his ability to rise again, both literally and figuratively, would define his future. For Plant and others, Tszyu's loss was just a setback in what could still be a long and successful career. The conversation surrounding Tim Tszyu's unexpected defeat to Bakhram Murtazaliev has ignited a firestorm of opinions within the boxing community. While some analysts point to poor matchmaking as a crucial factor in Tszyu's loss, others celebrate his courage for stepping into the ring against a formidable opponent. Caleb Plant's supportive words highlight a deeper respect for the grueling nature of boxing and the mental fortitude required to overcome setbacks. As Tszyu embarks on his journey to regroup and reflect, questions linger about how this loss will shape his future in the sport. Can a fighter bounce back stronger after a decisive defeat, or does a loss like this leave a lasting scar? What do you think Tim Tszyu should focus on in his comeback?